Hi, hello everyone, my name is Ramiro Melo, and this video today is part of the last assignment of Economics 500, Managerial Economics of IAU, International American University. Our instructor is Professor Arlovich, and our mission today is to simulate microeconomics principles with Python coding, so let's go. First, we need to import all the libraries necessary to run this program. But remember, this video is not about coding, alright? It's about microeconomics, so I'm not going deep into coding here today. Okay, let's start importing here. Alright, these are the libraries that we need. But before we continue, let's go back to the slides and see an important concept, alright? So what we have here? We have two bars representing the seller's price level, and the orange bar represents the buyer's price level, okay? So that means that in this specific case, the buyer is willing to pay $40 for the product, okay? And the seller is willing to sell this product for $20. So what's happening here? Let's imagine that they made a deal of $30 for the product, okay? That means that the seller made $10 more than he was willing to sell, and the buyer saved $10 of the price that he was willing to pay, okay? So it was a good deal for both of them. In microeconomics, we call this surplus. This concept is important because we're going to use it on our simulation. Now let's go back to our code. The seller minimum price will be a random number between 0 and 100, okay? And the buyer's price will be a random number as well between 0 and 100. So these are the rules of our scenario. If the seller minimum price is less or equal than the buyer maximum price, we're gonna have a deal, okay? And we will establish the deal price between these two prices. It will simulate the negotiation, okay? And if the buyer's price is less than the seller's minimum price, we won't have a deal, of course. Now let's code our surplus. The surplus will be the difference between these two prices, as we saw on the slide right here. And now basically we have the numbers that we need for the simulation. We have the seller's minimum price, the buyer's maximum price, the deal price, and the surplus. Okay, now let's start printing our results. Now let's run this cell. Okay, what do we have here? We have one example of this simulation. The seller minimum price will be 81. The buyer's maximum price that he's willing to pay is 22. And of course, we don't have a deal. The surplus is negative. Let's try again. Same thing. The minimum price that the seller is asking is much higher than the price that the buyer is willing to pay, so we don't have a deal. And now the seller is willing to sell for $16 and the buyer is willing to pay $72. Of course, we have a deal, and the computer decided a random number between these two to represent the deal price, okay? So this buyer and this seller made a deal on $65, and the surplus total is $56. Okay, it seems to work fine in one simple case. Now let's loop this code to have a larger sample size. Okay, in this cell we're gonna loop the same code that we have on the previous cell, but this time we're gonna have a sample size of 250 interactions. I think it's a good size for this exercise. Let's store these results in a list, in a variable. Okay, so what we have here? We have a big list with 250 interactions between the buyers and sellers. Let's try now to represent all this data graphically, okay? Now let's take a look. So what's happening now? We're seeing graphically all these interactions. Of course, this representation is chaotic and hard to understand. So let's try a different approach. Let's sort all interactions by the surplus, okay? Now we have the same results, but now sorted by the surplus. It will gonna give us a better representation. Let's print it graphically again. Let's run this code. Now something really interesting show up. We can see that the seller's price have a direct relation, while the buyer's price have an inverted relation. To go deeper on microeconomics, you must use the quantity grouped on the x-axis to create the supply and demand curves. Okay, let's do that. So what we're doing here is grouping all individual interactions in price levels by quantity. All right, now let's print this new chart. So now we have a supply and demand curve using random interactions with random numbers and random prices, and following two simple rules. The seller wants to sell for the highest prices possible, and the buyer wants to buy for the lower prices possible, just like in the human nature. After defining the supply and demand curves, now we can find our equilibrium price. Equilibrium price is the price where the supply of goods matches the demand, okay? Let's run the code. In this virtual market with random numbers, we can see that our equilibrium price is somewhere around 52, okay? Somewhere around here. Oops, I'm sorry, this chart is... the axes are inverted here, I'm sorry. Let me fix this. Now it's okay. The y-axis is the price, and the axis x is the quantity. Okay, so our equilibrium price is around here, 52. Okay, this is the simplest case that you're gonna find in microeconomics. It's a simple supply and demand curve and equilibrium price, But now let's try to do something different here. Let's try to add taxes in this data, which in microeconomics we call externalities. Let's assume that the government is now taxing this product in 20%, okay, over the supply curve. Let's take a look at the new supply. Now let's put this new data on our previous chart. Alright, so now we have the demand curve, the supply curve, and the new supply curve after taxes, okay? After 20% of taxes. So now let's find the new equilibrium price, because as you can see, the curve shifted to the left and the price changed. Let's find the new equilibrium price. Now we have the new data with taxes included. And as you can see, our new equilibrium price rose to 56. Okay, that's this new level here. Alright, I hope you have enjoyed this video. And that was a simple simulation using random numbers. Of course, in the real life, things are much more complex, but it was a good exercise. As you can see, with simple rules, we can imitate the human nature in microeconomics. And that's it. I hope you have enjoyed. I'm leaving here some references that I used for my research, and I'm gonna leave the GitHub link to this code down below on the description. And thanks again, Professor Ira and International American University. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or GitHub. And see you next video. Bye bye. Thanks.